What is up, my friends? It is John Smoltz Day here on Flippin' Bats, which is always one of my favorite days of the week. And today we have some really good questions. One, I'm going to ask about the Denzel Clark catch. Not that in particular, but it's one of the greatest catches we have ever seen. Who better to ask than John Smoltz, who played with Andrew Jones, Kenny Lofton? What is the greatest catch that you have ever seen in person? And the answer he gives is incredible. So we're going to talk about that. Kike Hernandez with the Dodgers comes in to pitch in the sixth inning of a blowout. And I talked online a little bit about how it's pretty embarrassing that that happens. And then you essentially punt a game against your rival. So I'm going to ask John about that as well. What do you think about position players coming in and pitching and punting games? And it did end up working out for the Dodgers, I guess, because they won the next game and saved their bullpen. But want to have a good conversation with him there because it was interesting on social media the reaction it gets. One, Dodgers fans refuse to admit that the Padres are a rival. And two, everyone says, well, it's not. Is it embarrassing? Is it not? So I want to ask John Smoltz about that. And lastly, we also talk about pitcher injuries. We just saw Corbin Burns, first year of a $200+ million contract, 7 years, needs Tommy John. Jackson Jobe, unfortunately, with the Detroit Tigers, young stud, needs Tommy John. So I often talk to John Smoltz about pitcher injuries. It's something he is very, very passionate about, as you all know, but a little bit of a different framework of it this time. What do you do if you're an organization? Is there anything that can be done? The D-backs have signed a couple pitchers that immediately get hurt. Is there anything you can do there? Do pitcher contracts look different moving forward? We do end up talking about Paul Skeens and what his future contract might look like. So John is always really, really good on this subject. And I think, as he'll mention, a decade ago, people were calling for his head, saying, "Oh, how dare you?" But he's been right. Pitcher injuries are a problem, but what do we do? How do we go about it? Do we see those contracts evolve? Ends up being a really good conversation here with John Smoltz today. So thank him as always. I thank him as always for joining as he does every single week. Please make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen or watch the show. Go check it out on YouTube. Leave a comment. I always hop in the YouTube comments and talk to you guys. So make sure you're subscribed there, like the video, comment, whatever, because every single week, John Smoltz joins us here on the show. And without further ado, let's get to him now and welcome in the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. All right, I am pumped as we do every single week to welcome in now the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. John, first off, how are we doing this week?
We're doing great. We're in the middle of Wisconsin at a Sand Valley Resort for a conference up here, so doing great.
You know, it was really cool talking to you last week, and I want to ask how it went because you were at John Smoltz Strikeout Baseball Stadium in Michigan. At the time of us talking, you were just a couple days away from the grand opening. Can you share a little bit about how that grand opening and all of that went?
Yeah, it was an absolute magical day. Ton of people showed up, and the city responded well to what really we think is going to be an incredible venue. Already have kids playing there, fathers, sons playing
Uh,
there. It was magical, and I couldn't have asked for a better day, a better opening of what really has been an idea in the birth of, like I said, Jeff Lazarus about 3 years ago, and I'm honored. I mean, aesthetically, it's pleasing, but I think the biggest thing is what the impact it's going to have in the community. Again, it's pickup baseball, nothing like it. I think it's going to be well received and pick up steam as we go on.
I mean, it looks awesome. If anybody didn't see it, go back to our last episode last week with John and check that out. It is truly, truly incredible. John, I want to start this week with earlier this week, we saw Denzel Clark with the A's make a catch that is genuinely one of the greatest catches we've ever seen. I mean, scaled the wall up and over, caught it, almost fell over, pulls himself back in. One of the greatest catches you'll ever see. My question to you, because obviously you personally played with one of the greatest defensive center fielders ever and played the game for a long time, is when I ask you the greatest catch you've ever seen, what sticks out to you?
Yeah, the greatest catch I've ever seen was in a one-run game in the ninth against Pittsburgh, and Otis Nixon. because the fences were over 10 feet tall.
Hmm.
Otis Nixon went over the fence to catch this. He basically planted his spike in the wall, went over the fence, robbed the home run. I want to say it was Andy Van Slyke hit it. It was the greatest. I mean, I still to this day don't know how it was possible because you can't rob a home run unless you do exactly what he did. The timing was perfect. Kenny Lofton has some of the greatest highlight reels for
Yep.
robbing home runs because of his athleticism, jumping over, even when he was playing in Cleveland. But to see Fulton County Stadium and to have that wall, and those who remember it, it's you just can't rob it. It was boring for shagging because you couldn't jump over the fence, but he somehow robbed a home run over the fence. And I will say this: the greatest catch, I kid him every time. The greatest catch I personally saw that wasn't in a game was at Candlestick Park. Mark Grant, pitcher, now broadcaster for the San Diego Padres.
Yep.
Timed a home run in batting practice on a chain link fence, climbed the chain link fence, got one leg over the top of the fence, and robbed the home run and waved it back and forth. And I'm telling you, I was screaming. I couldn't believe that he did it. So imagine timing, scaling the chain link fence, then getting your leg over the top. And I tell them everybody that it's the greatest catch I've ever seen. And unfortunately, it just was in batting practice.
It's like in Major League when he goes back, scales
Yeah.
the wall, stands on top of the fence, and then catches it.
Yes, it's exactly right. It was, and plus it was shocking because Mark Grant may not look like the most athletic pitcher in the world, but he certainly has the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Obviously, that one won't be on video somewhere.
No.
Is the Otis Nixon one
Oh
somewhere
yeah.
on video?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you can Google Otis Nixon catch in Fulton County, and you can't believe how he got it done.
I'm on it. We're gonna find it.
Yeah.
Next one for you, John. I was watching. Look, it seems to be up for discussion, which kind of pisses me off. But the Padres and Dodgers is a rivalry, despite what every Dodgers fan out there seemingly says. Mookie Betts will say it's a rivalry. Dave Roberts will, but like half the players say it's not, and all the fans seem to say it's not. But regardless, that's not even my point. Padres Dodgers is a rivalry. And then during their series this week, you have a blowout game. You have Kike Hernandez, a position player, coming in to pitch in the sixth inning and throwing lollipops in there. And they essentially punted that game, and it did, I guess, work out for them. And they had the bullpen saved for the next day, and they ended up winning the series. But to me, John, it's a little embarrassing. I mean, you spend $1 billion on pitching. You're obviously the highlight of the league in terms of having star players, yet you have a position player coming in the sixth inning throwing lollipops in a game against your rival and punting a game in the regular season. I don't know. What are your thoughts on, I don't know if you saw that particularly, but a big rivalry matchup. Next thing you know, Kike Hernandez is in the sixth inning, 9-0 ball game. It's not over per se, but they punted the game and it ended up working out for them. I was just wondering your thoughts. I thought it was a bit embarrassing to see.
I've always said, and I probably take flack for it, I think it's the most embarrassing thing, anything you can do in sports. I think with the reality of all the smart people thinking pitching, bullpenning, and we've had more position players pitch in baseball games than ever before. And what does that tell you? And it's the most embarrassing thing I think there is. I think every once in a while you can say it's cute, the fans kind of get on it. But when we're having it at this alarming rate, I think baseball needs to do something about it. I know they've made a rule and when you can use that person. But you know what? At some point, people keep talking about, well, let's just have a mercy rule. What are we doing? You should almost, I don't know. I just don't think the penalty's good enough. I think it's just embarrassing. And that's what I won't change my thought on that.
Yeah.
I think, why don't we have pitchers in a blowout game go up and hit instead of the hitters? Like people would get all over that. They would be like, this is ridiculous. And I can't think of another sport. Even in the NBA, there's blowouts. You lose by 40, but it's not like they're they're bringing people in off the stands to finish out the game. So that part's always bothered me, and I know that I'll catch flack for that, but I just think it's embarrassing. I think that's the perfect word. I know the season's long and you play a lot of games, and we're always concerned about the bullpen. But if pitching is so great, which I believe it is, and the dynamics of it are there, we just don't have guys trained to do the things that would eat up those innings that would not cause a position player to pitch.
For sure. And I feel like we're not that far removed from having pitchers that are considered like mop-up guys, like, okay, it's not a high leverage guy. It's just we're gonna use you. Yeah, we're gonna use you when we need you to eat up some innings. And now it just seems like we're doing that with position players. And I get the thought behind it, but one, I sort of agree with you. It's fun to watch maybe once, but I don't need to see it super often. But two, I don't know, John. It was the sixth inning in a 9-0 ball game, and you have one of the greatest offenses of all time. It was just, for so many reasons to me, a little embarrassing to watch it have to happen. And you're a team that spends over $1 billion to get players, yet you're punting a game, and people can say, well, they won the series and it worked out great. And it's like, well, the pitchers you needed the next day, you probably weren't going to use in that situation anyway. I don't know. It was just, I thought watching the game, everyone's pumped for that series. This ends up happening in game 2. You punt the game, and I couldn't agree more. I do think it's a little embarrassing.
Well, it just speaks to our injuries and all the injuries we're having, especially the injuries the Dodgers are having. They're protecting something that obviously in the beginning of the year, when you've got all those resources, you don't envision 14 guys on the IL.
Yeah.
But that's got to change. Until the injury situation changes, we're going to have position players pitching until they make a mercy rule or some other rule that changes the dynamics of it, because the injuries are just too great.
Well, we've talked about those injuries, pitcher injuries ad nauseum, really over the last few years, and it's obviously an important topic. And between the last time you and I talked last week and right now, Corbin Burnes signs a 7-year, $210 million contract. Jackson Jobe, young stud in this league for the Detroit Tigers, needs TJ. Corbin Burnes needs TJ. So a bit of a different question that comes to mind to ask you is, okay, you're the Arizona Diamondbacks. You sign a stud star pitcher for 7 years, $210 million. And when I think of the D-backs, they've had some misfortune in terms of signing guys and then injuries creeping up, whether it be Jordan Montgomery signed, was bad, and then gets hurt. Eduardo Rodriguez immediately hurt and has barely pitched for them. Corbin Burnes immediately hurt. Is it something within an organization? Is there anything that can be done ahead of time, or is that just the nature of big contracts to pitchers at this point?
And I have a little bit different take that this is not a popular philosophy. When you develop your own, you know everything you need to know about that pitcher. Mm-hmm. So if you sign your own, you know the viability of what he can do and how he works out. When you bring in somebody else, you're kind of guessing. You're talking around the league. You're hoping that they do the things that they did previously.
Yep.
And the arc and the way that we're spending money on the basis of what they might do is a little bit, well, it's more than a 50-50 chance on whether those contracts are going to work out or not. And when you give a 7-year deal to a pitcher, you're fully expecting that pitcher to get hurt, and you're fine with 4 years out of that 7. That's basically what the league is and what management is saying. I'll take 5 years of Corbin Burnes, knowing he's going to probably end up maybe in a Tommy John situation or miss a year due to injuries. That, to me, is a backwards way to approach this whole situation.
Oh, yeah.
We're not doing the R&D well. We're not doing the research. We got all the information. We're not utilizing the doctors that have been putting in all this research that baseball could be doing something about. It's not going to change because the people making decisions are okay with what I just said.
Yeah.
And they're not coming out ever talking about injury prevention anymore. When's the last club you've heard come out and be proactive other than admit, hey, we got to do something about it? But nobody's doing anything about it. They're fine with it because there's so many arms that are available, but not a pitcher and not ready. And you're just shuffling the deck. So when you start having homegrown guys doing that, that's one thing. But when you start signing a bunch of guys that happen on your watch, that's kind of a chance and a roll of the dice when you're going to partake in those kind of signings.
So I was going to ask if you think pitcher contracts change as we move forward. If there's nothing done about these injuries, do you think we see pitcher contracts change? But I guess your stance is, well, no, because teams are signing these guys with the understanding that they're going to get hurt, unfortunately.
Well, 10 years ago and 5 years ago, everybody tried to cut my legs out because I've been talking about this for 10 years and everybody thinks they're smarter. So that's fine. They can cut my legs out, but they haven't been right. And what I said 10 years ago, when they analytically tried to change the game into bullpenning, they devalued the starting pitcher. When you devalue the starting pitcher, you don't have competition. When you don't have competition, you're going to pay a lot of money for those guys who stand out because there's just not equal competition in the starting room. There's just not that many of them. So the answer is that the contracts aren't going to change because the desire to get that kind of pitcher, you'll take your chances because there's not a lot of other options. Until we put back the effort in developing starting pitchers and the role that they're supposed to be, you're going to have this argument for a long time. The next conversation that we're going to have in a couple of years is going to be about Paul Skeens and what is he going to demand, and will he stay healthy, and what are there's so much evidence that the evidence is not outweighing the decision to sign these contracts. So I say this and I say it 100 times. I don't blame the player. The player is chasing the reward system. Yeah. I blame the system. The system is creating this. They're fine with it. They're going to hit. They're going to hit repeat over and over and over again, thinking something's going to change and nothing's going to change. So this is the narrative, and we better get used to it until the rule changes come with pitching that alter the philosophy of how we go about viewing and raising pitchers.
Yeah, I think you and I could talk about this for hours, and obviously we can't do that. But I think Spencer Strider's an interesting example. You're seeing him now, and it's like, oh, he's not the same pitcher. Spencer Strider's throwing like 95 right now. You should be able to pitch at the big leagues sitting 95 miles an hour. And I think it's an interesting point of like, let's use that as an example. Unfortunately, he has already gone through his multiple arm injuries. But like, okay, let's use him like, you can pitch at the big leagues at 95. Spencer Strider right now is having to learn how to do that because he's never done that in his life. And obviously he hasn't always thrown 95, but he's always thrown way harder than the average. And now he's having to learn to do that. And right now he doesn't know how. And I think it's a good talking point to people of like, let's learn before you have to go through the two arm injuries. Let's learn to pitch at 93 to 95 instead of throwing 100 miles an hour. Let's look at Spencer Strider, see what he had to do, and say, okay, let's learn before you go through that. But I don't know how you tell pitchers.
It's been a broken record for me. I've been saying that the people making decisions don't know how to teach a person how to pitch. The guys who have influence have been pushed out of the game. The eyes that can help a pitcher don't have any resignated voice. And you're only going to sit a computer model, and that's the only metrics you're going to use. Then you're you're basically handicapping a young, great pitcher from learning, and he's going to have to learn on the job now. I said it. He's not going to be the same pitcher. Whenever you have a Tommy John, you're not getting better. You're not getting stronger. You're just getting back to what you're capable of. And you have a second one, you are severely compromised, and you still can be dominant and great, but you have to learn how to pitch with a new tool set. And yeah, his miles per hour will go up, but you can't throw a pitch down the middle at 95. You can at 100.
Yep. John, always a pleasure, my friend. Really appreciate it. Congrats again on John Smoltz Strikeout Baseball Stadium. It truly looked awesome. So congrats on that. And thanks, as always, for joining us here.
My pleasure. Thanks again.
All right. I just wanted to thank John again for joining us here, as he does every week. Always a favorite episode of mine. To have him on every week means a ton. And to be able to talk through things happening in the game really is awesome for me. So this one was really cool. I know he's passionate about pitcher injuries, and I totally I do agree with him. There's obviously a problem, but there's nothing fixing the problem, and teams are just going about things knowing a guy is going to get hurt. It's a tricky situation, and I hope I hope I don't know at what level you learn. Obviously, you're constantly chasing velo every level you go to. I came up through a baseball academy all the time. You're chasing velocity, and you get to college and you get that you get that scholarship because you're chasing velocity, and you always are. So at what point does somebody say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, let's not throw 98, even though you can. Let's throw 94, and if you get in trouble, we can then reach back and get to 98." I don't know who tells them that. Who tells Spencer Strider, don't throw 100, throw 95, and when you need it, 100 is there. I don't know that answer, but I do think I do think we need that to happen. Anyway, great conversation with Smoltz as always. Really appreciate you all for listening and watching as you do every week or every show. If you're new, I hope you keep coming back. This show means the world to me. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube where you can watch every single episode we do. Hop in the comments. I love talking back to you guys and having a conversation there. Please subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. We're on all social media at Flippin' Bats Pod. 2025, the year of Flippin' Bats. A lot of fun, exciting stuff coming up soon, including next week where I am heading to Alabama to Rickwood Field where they're doing they do that game where they did last year, and it'll be a full celebration of what the Negro Leagues was, and I'm excited to get there on site and do an episode and talk to you guys about everything happening there. So anyway, thank you all for listening and watching. Until next time, my friends, enjoy the weekend of baseball. Some good stuff, and we'll be back Monday of next week. Remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace.